Good afternoon, Shane from DIY Retro Arcade. Today I wanted to show you a new PCB that we had made that we're going to call it the Easy Pandora. What this board does is it'll allow you to install a Pandora Family Edition, almost like how an Arcade1Up is set up with the buttons. You're basically just using jumper wires for everything, and then you'll just plug this into the actual Pandora, power it on, and you should be good to go. Let me show you the unpopulated board. That's a little bit easier to see everything on. But like, you'll have player 1 coin, start, A, B, C, D, E, F buttons, your joystick, your main power switch, your left and your right speaker, your player 2 start, A, B, C, D, E, F button, and joystick. We also, on this board, for people who have like marquees, want to do LED buttons or whatnot, we put it so you can run 12-volt power into the board and have a on-off switch that goes directly to whatever you're trying to power. You can see that a little bit better. It's just got a standard 5.5 by 2.1 millimeter barrel connector, which is the most common one that there is. But all you do on this one, this is completely separate from the actual Pandora. This board will work, this portion will work with nothing else plugged in. But all this is a simple circuit. You send power in here. You have a switch that goes right here. Just a little two button pass-through switch. And then you have a out for 12 volt for 1 and number 2, so you can do 12 volt out on both of these ports. But it just uses a sample, a simple little switch like that. Just a little simple on-off switch. Anything that's just a little 2-wire switch. In fact, I'll hook a button up to it right now and show you how that works. I have a simple. This is a 12 volt power in. You can actually use 5 volt if you want to. It doesn't matter. Whatever you put in here, if you put 12 volt, 5 volt, 24 volt, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's what will come out of the power ports. But all you need to do, let me plug the little switch in. As again, everything uses jumper wires. So this right here says Accessory Switch. So take your switch, plug in right there, and then output 1. You could hook in like an LED harness, a marquee plug. It's not necessarily made for one button, but I'm just doing this to show you how it works. And then when you put your 12 volt in right there, and then push the button, you can see the LED comes on and off. And like I said, it's just a simple little circuit to give you an on and off that you can mount in like your front J panel on your Arcade1Up or wherever. That way you can turn stuff off and on without having to turn the main power off to the unit. The Pandoras Family Editions, they plug directly into the actual unit, so there's really no other way to physically turn something off and on without using a switch. Alright, let's get into the physical setup. We have a test, or our test machine here is a Street Fighter. Bob made this really cool design, and it got printed twice here, so I went ahead and used it. And I cut one of my CPOs to use the factory on-off switch and the volume control. So what I'm going to basically show is how you can use, say, like your Street Fighter or your Mortal Kombat. Any six button CPO will work. You can use it with the Pandora, and just put the coin button in the J panel. To use your factory one, again, we're going to pretend this is a factory one. What you'll do is you'll take the factory encoder board and remove it. Take all the wires off, remove everything. Honestly, I would change the buttons. The joysticks you have to change. I didn't wire the PCB to work with the Arcade1Up. The quality of those joysticks is just absolutely garbage. So I mean, yeah, there's just no reason for me to even put them on. But the buttons will work with our with our PCB. So if you do want to reuse your factory buttons, they will work. Again, I would change it all, but if you want to save a little bit, I understand. But what you'll have to do if you are installing this onto an Arcade1Up CPO and using this right here, you'll need to trim a little of this off, this center pin, because the 35 pin it sticks down a little bit, so it wasn't setting flush on here, it was basically setting up high. So I just snubbed a little bit of that off, problem solved. All you need to do is mount this just like the Arcade1Up one was. It's always easier to start both screws before you tighten them down. Just set them in and turn it a few turns and then do the other one. Snug it down. Okay, by default, whenever you go in and do an I/O test on a Pandoras box on the DX, the way it has the button layout, it has A, B, C, D, E, F. Now remember, we're actually mirrored, we're upside down, so this is the player 1 side and this is the player 2 side. But I went ahead and marked it down just to make it a little bit easier in hooking this up. And all you're going to want to do is follow exactly what's on the board. It's that simple. It'll plug in just like the Arcade1Up. Plug your one player coin to your one player coin. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Your one player start to right here. Your coin button is actually going to be in the J pin on this one because I didn't cut them for the panel. So your one player start will be right here, and then you have your A button, which will be right here. Your B button, which will go to right here, your C button, which will go to right here, and so on and so on. And this will be, like I said, just like the Arcade1Up. So actually, when I made the PCB, I should have flip-flopped these, but I didn't take into consideration that it was going to be flip-flopped like this. Something to remember for next time, the next PCB that we make. But that right there says player 1 start. I'm using LED buttons. I'm going to show you how to hook the LED into this as well. But on the LED buttons, you have 4 sets. You have this piece right here, the 2 that come out of the actual gray portion of our button. This is the function itself, and then the actual pins that are stuck on the outer side of the button is the LED function. So we're going to concentrate only on the portion that's connected to the gray block. One thing that I suggest that when you're installing this kind of stuff is to turn all the buttons the same. If you'll notice that all my buttons are all turned the same, they're all facing the same direction, so when you're installing this stuff, you don't have to really slow down and pay attention to whether or not you're plugging into the LED portion or the center portion. It just makes it easier, and I'm OCD anyway, so it's just how I've always done it. So again, this was the player 1 start, and on your red and your black wire, it doesn't really matter which side you stick on where, but I've always followed the rule, however I stick it on the first one is how I do it on all of them. It doesn't matter, but again, it's my OCD. This is how I've always done it. And then your next button is the A button. So your A button will go down to this. And with how we're setting up the buttons, if you can do it however you want, you don't have to do the A, B, C, D. You don't have to do this pattern. This is just how the default Pandora does them. So when we do the I/O test and we're checking the button function, it'll basically all match what's on the screen. You can change the button layout, and this is going to the B. You can change the button layout, so it really doesn't matter. Like I said, some people set them up, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F. It's like I said, it doesn't really matter, because like I said, you can change them. But this is the B, so we'll plug that one in. There's the C, player 1C. This is going to get really, really tall once we get done. Once everything is said and done, I always take zip ties and twist everything nice and neat. But don't do that until you get everything done and you verify everything is working. Then over here is the D terminal, or D button, I should say. And E. And these things will only plug in one way. They have a guard that only lets it plug in one way, so you can't plug it in backwards. Again, it really doesn't even matter, because the buttons will function no matter which side the wire is on. It's not like it's hot and negative. I always call it function and ground. And this one goes to the F. Okay, I'm going to do this other side real quick off camera. There's no point in spending 20 minutes doing this. Give me 1 second, okay? Actually, what we're going to do is just to verify that everything is working. I haven't honestly tested this PCB, so this is really my first time as well. Again, we kind of go along with you. So let me go ahead and plug in this SANWA. Something to note about the joystick, you'll notice that I have the PCB pointing upwards. We always turn them like this, no matter what. We try to stay consistent. This is how we've always turned them on the Arcade1Ups and any machines we've always built. So it needs to point this way. It needs to point up. This is how this is configured to work. So this will plug into here. Plugs into that, and just like that. What we're going to do, if you want to use the power switch for the Arcade1Up, the volume control switch, again, it doesn't work. I haven't figured out a way quite to integrate that in, but if you'll look on the PCB, it says main power switch, which is right here. This is your main power switch. It'll plug in right here. And again, this should work off the Arcade1Up power switch now. Alright, let's go ahead and plug this into a TV, into a Pandora, and we'll check and verify that this side works. And if so, then we'll hook up the other side and actually mount it into the machine. Let me get this out of the way, and I'll show you the rest of the pieces for this board. So you'll have your Pandoras Box DX, and then you'll also need this harness that we've manufactured. Again, this is pretty much as plug and play as you can get. All you'll need to do is plug this into the actual Pandora. And again, these are two different sizes, so you can't mix them up, and they got guide pins, 35 pin to a 40 pin. So plug that into that, just like so. And then you'll have this little one right here, this little 2-wire. This is actually for the speaker. It'll plug in right there. And then you'll have this one right here, which is the power switch. It'll plug in right there. And that's all that you have to do. And then simply go here. If I can get back in the picture here. Go here and simply plug this one in to the board, to our board, just like that. Now we're going to flip this over and let me, I need to send power to the Pandora. Let me plug that in. And let me hook in an HDMI. This is, like I said, I'm just going to run this to the TV is all I want to do. We'll just see if it works. We can find out together. So we'll set that aside. And then that right there is the power switch. We'll turn that on. I see a red light, so that's a good thing. Let me actually take the camera.
Pandora Box DX. Battle continue.
So that's coming up at least. So I'm going to hit the I/O test. I'm holding the camera, so it's going to be kind of bouncy. We're going to hit the I/O test. To select the I/O test, and then we're going to test up, down, left, right. All that works is fine. A button working, B, C, D, E, and F. So yep, it looks like everything is working. I'm going to kill the video, and I'm going to flip this back over, and I'm going to hook up the player 2 side, and then we'll actually drop it in the unit. Alright guys, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fully install this into the cabinet, and then I'll make an additional video that shows you how to hook the LED harness into it as well. I'm going to do that way if people aren't using a LED button, then they can, you know, not have to watch 20 or 30 minutes extra video. But I went ahead and tied up my wires, and these buttons will still function even if you don't send power to them. The LED function and the actual function is two separate circuits, so it doesn't matter. So this will work just like it should. The only thing we need to plug in the speakers, and that's pretty much it. And also your coin buttons, we'll plug them in. We have a coin button on player 1 side, and then on the second one, instead of being coin, it's pause now on the DXs. What I did is we're going to stick that in the J panel. So let me show you what I got going. I got the J panel here. I went ahead and stuck the wires on it to save a little time as well. Again, and I used some a little bit longer ones that I have for like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cabinet. So these are going to be a little longer. But all you do is same thing. This is your negative, your positive. On this one, it does matter. Make sure your black is hooked to the negative terminal. and make sure the red is hooked to the positive. Again, this does matter. On this also, something that I've always struggled with on these things is getting these terminals to slide onto the speakers. It's absolutely hard to get them on. This thing is super flimsy and bends real easy, and you can break it. So what I typically do, I don't have one here in front of me, but take a small flathead screwdriver and just push up inside there and kind of wiggle it around a little bit. Don't make it like crazy big, but just stick it in and pull it back out is usually enough to spread it out enough so it actually slides onto the speakers fairly easy. But this is ready to go into the cabinet, so let's do that real quick. Alright, we got the CPO sitting on top. I have the J panel mounted. What we're going to do is we'll go ahead and hook up the speakers and the coin and pause. And let me just kind of throw these in here, and we'll pull them out one at a time. This right here is your left speaker. So you'll go right here to where it says left speaker, and we'll plug that one in. And here is your right speaker. So let's plug that one in. This right here is going to be our coin button, which is on the one player side. We'll hook that into coin. And this right here will be the second one, which we'll hook into the pause. And that is pretty much it. Let me grab my harness again. So the harness is 80 centimeters. Which is about 30 inches, I believe, somewhere in that area. So take it and feed it through. Just drop it down in there. And then take your one. See, it's got the lock right here. And it's got the cutout for the lock right there, so it only goes one way. Take that and plug it in. And then the entire top side for right now should be ready to go. Whenever we hook the LED up in a separate video, I'll pull this back apart and I'll show you. We'll set that down in here. That'll sit down just like so. Let me back up a little bit and we'll try to shoot from the inside. Or actually what I'm going to do is, give me one sec. Actually, since the harness is so long, we can actually pull it back up here. Again, I'll just mount it up here and then we'll just set it inside. Again, you got your lock right there. You got your lock on your Pandora's box. Take it, simply plug it in. And take your other two cables. Your power switch, again, only plugs in one direction. It's got little tabs that go right there on these little tabs. Push that in, and then push this one in. Alright, and now all you need to do to finish this up, on the back of the monitor I have my LCD driver already installed. Here's all your outputs. Take your HDMI cable and plug it in here and run it to your LCD driver, and simply plug in your 12-volt power supply right here, and we should be playing. Let's test it out. I'm going to go ahead and mount this and plug it in, and I'll real quick. Give me 1 second. Alright guys, we have everything hooked up, so let's power it on. One thing to note, on these is that it's kind of slow to give a screen. It typically takes 20 to 30 seconds to come up, so don't panic if you don't get a screen instantly that you power it on.
Pandora Box DX. Battle continue.
And there you have it. These by default will always be set on free play. You can go into the menu system and change it to coin if you want. I always set them to coin on these because I always use the coin button, because now on the DX you have the pause feature for the coin 2 button, and that's also an easy way to exit the game. If you're in coin mode, you can actually exit the game, I believe, by hitting coin and player 1 at the same time, or holding player 1 down for 3 seconds. If you're in free play mode, you can exit the game by simply hitting the pause button and then selecting exit. And there you have it. If you do install this thing in something besides an Arcade1Up, or if you're not using a factory CPO that has the built-in power switch, you can use any two-way switch, mount it in the J panel, like down here. In fact, you can, I don't know if you can see them or not, but I have some actual switches mounted right here that we'll use in the next video for the LED buttons. But you can also make this an on off button for the actual Pandora box as well, in case you don't have the built-in switch here. Thank you.